Welcome back to As Told by You. We are very excited to welcome Andre Goodman to the podcast today. Andre and I were former teammates at Carolina, so that's why I get to sit here today. Andre, thanks for being here. We're excited to kind of hear what you got going on and all the different things, life after football, and we find that very interesting.
Look forward to the conversation.
We won't have too much football talk because then Bill will start to glaze over like I do when we have music talk going on.
Nah, you're good. If I'm here, man, then I'm an open book.
Listen, I have learned a lot about football in the last couple of years. Okay, with all this work that we've done with football players, I've gotten to where I can kind of talk about it a little bit. I can talk about it enough, you know.
Although you did ask me the other day, I don't know the difference between a defensive back and a defensive end, and I was like,
"Oh yeah, Bill,
I don't."
Stay away from the football.
I'm sorry, yeah, but look, I mean, because you and one of your guests a couple weeks ago were talking about being corners, right?
Yeah.
And
you don't know what that
I know what a cornerback is, right? But I'm not sure what the role of a cornerback is. You know what I mean? I know that it is a role, but I don't know what the role is.
Yeah,
so,
that's fine. We'll just stay away from the conversation.
But that's okay. But see, that goes to audience, right? You're talking directly to an audience who's gonna know what that is, right?
Yeah. I suppose
you're not worried about me. You're not worried about me who doesn't know what that is. Right?
I think it's all just general conversation. Like
totally.
Brian said, like what comes up, but you can't control my response if you ask a question.
Well,
make sure you can edit it out. That's all.
So much of the work we do at the university, all of the university employees have nicknames for the buildings that they're all very aware of and familiar with because they went to the university. So when they say the nickname for the building, they assume that I know exactly what building they're talking about. So I had to learn what Rice was and what Long was and what Blatt was and all of these things because they don't give me addresses. They just say, "Oh, we're going to meet at Rice," and I have to know what Rice is. And so I had to learn all that stuff, So it's been been an interesting journey.
So Andre, you actually did get to work for the university for a short period of time after you retired.
I did.
What was your role there?
So director of player development, and it was similar to what I'm actually doing now, just the one-on-one conversations with players regarding off-the-field concerns, be it the freshmen that were coming in, that were trying to adapt to the new culture, or the guys that were going on to play in the NFL, what that draft process looks like, and also just the career development piece for the guys that were not transitioning to the next level of professional football, but that was transitioning to the workforce, giving them tools of what that transition looks like, and keeping the conversation very just cordial, so it didn't feel like they were talking to a coach. It actually felt like they were just talking to one of the guys in the locker room, and that's what I think just kind of drove my energy to continue those conversations, because most of them were centered on their well-being, not just their performance, but just how well they were doing as individuals. And I just, that being a part of their development in that manner was just, I don't know, I think it became addictive.
What drew you to that point after? Did you feel like that was something that was missing from when you were there, or how did you kind of discover that's kind of what you want, that direction you wanted to go after you got out of playing?
So that was definitely, it wasn't directed, it wasn't planned. I actually just went back to visit. Like, I had just recently retired. I had made the decision to retire, and I went back just to visit, and met with some of the coaches. Robert Lyles was there at the time, and he asked me, was I actually done with football? And I said, yeah, man, I'm done. I'm looking to transition. And he said, would you be interested in this particular role? And I asked him what it was, and he said, would you interview for it? Because a lot of people have been, and I think the time Terry Cousins had left it, and he said, interview for it, see how it goes, and it just went well. So they invited me on, and it felt like a great way for me to transition, because it allowed me to still be a part of the game, but stay behind the scenes, which is my preferred. Yeah, that's just my preference.
Now, the mental health aspect that you've jumped into, did that evolve from that position at Carolina, or did you end up going back to school to get more schooling on that, counseling stuff?
Well, no, I think that evolved from my own personal experience. So, like, I was dealing with psychological warfare. Like, I was in a place where I should have been fully content with how my life had played out. Like, if I had to draw it up in terms of where I wanted to be at the age of 33. I couldn't have drew it up any better, but I was miserable. And I was like, man, what is this? And then I had the understanding of what CTE was doing to players. And I didn't, I barely tackled anybody. So I'm thinking, okay, that's not even part of my story. But if I'm feeling this way and I don't feel like I have control of it, and it's not external factors, like financially we're doing okay. My wife, still pretends to love me, so home felt like it was good. My kids are healthy. The USC has allowed me to be in this position where it helped me transition and be okay with not feeling like I was empty from a career standpoint, but I still felt empty, and I had to figure out what that was. And I figured if I gave energy to it, then maybe I could also help other ex-players that were dealing with it, because I think Junior Seau had just committed suicide at the time. I dealt with Kenny in Denver when he did it, and it was a big part of the conversations because CTE and
Were you in Denver when that happened?
I was, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just and it became important to me.
Yeah.
One, because I was dealing with it. Two, because I was like, okay, this makes sense. Because as they were talking about those things while I was currently playing, and they kept saying the struggles of ex-players, I was like, oh yeah, I don't see myself dealing with that, because I love the game, but I'm one of those guys like, okay, football doesn't define me, so I doubt that I'll miss it. And I didn't miss it. I was dealing with an identity crisis. It's like, okay, well, if you're not a football player, then who are you? And once you dig into those existential questions, man, it becomes a rabbit hole. And for me, I went down a rabbit hole, and I felt like I got to go study this stuff, because I want to make it make sense for me. And then if I can articulate it to the next individual, then how great would that be to be able to contribute to them being able to get past their own demons? So yeah, it just became important to me.
Do you actually have CTE?
No, no. So it's the benefit. I did the brain and body program at USC Chapel Hill twice,
Okay.
5 years apart. One when I first retired, and I started dealing with it. And I think 2017, I was like, man, like even as I've been to counseling, I'm making sure that I was doing well. The first time they just from a diagnosis standpoint, they said a lot of stuff was undetermined. It wasn't CTE. I don't think I've ever been diagnosed with it. I don't think that was the point of it either. Like, I don't know how that works in terms of how you get diagnosed with CTE. From my understanding, they don't know it until you're dead and gone. So I don't know if people actually get diagnosed with it, to my understanding. But it wasn't that. They just said you're definitely dealing with some mental health issues. I mean, that's the first time the conversations of depression and anxiety. And then you start getting into the, oh man, what did you deal with as a child? And these conversations were part of the program. So as they were asking me questions, it's like, oh man, I need to dig deeper into this. And then I had a 5-year gap, and I was still dealing with it. And I said, man, I need to go get reevaluated again, just to make sure I'm okay, because this may be the insurance plan for NFL has a length. And I was like, I need to do it before the insurance plan run out, just to make sure I'm okay. And then they diagnosed me with multiple ailments. And I was like, okay, now that I got the diagnosis, let's go study what this looks like, what I need to do to better myself. And it just became, it's just a life process, right?
So what did you find out?
Major depressive disorder, general anxiety disorder, PTSD, OCD, and ADHD.
Do you feel like you had that stuff in your younger years?
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's why I went so deep into it, because it's like, okay, football may have exacerbated some of it, but this is stuff I dealt with as a kid. And so I've been who I am since I could first remember. I haven't developed any new personality. My personality has been dry for a long time, man. But what they were sharing with me began to make sense, and I matched it to my life experience. So it's like, okay, if they give me the diagnosis, is it real? Does it feel real to me? And then it did. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's make sense of this so I can share these conversations.
Well, and I think it's interesting too that there are people that haven't reached the level of success you've reached, right? Where they get to the top of the mountain that they've been climbing and they say, this isn't that interesting, right? I don't really love this mountain. I thought I was here, and as somebody who's not ever reached a level, I think one of the things that would happen is we go, man, if only I could be in the NFL, or if only I could be a rock star on stage, or if only I could get in the movies, I would have done it, right?
Yeah, and I think Scheffler, world's #1 golfer, was having this conversation over the week, just in terms of fulfillment. Like, most of us, especially when you're young, the way we define success is usually based on external factors.
Sure.
Like, what they tell me is financial gain is going to make me feel better.
Right.
They tell me the fanfare and the attention from my peers, being accepted, is going to make me feel better. They tell me that any accomplishment that I actually achieve is going to make me feel better. And it's like, I was, no, no, no. It was none of it. So it's like, okay, if that's not it, then what is it? It's just intrinsic. It's like, what is it that you need to feel for yourself? That to me is just being true to my real identity. So adapting myself to my surroundings and environment. Like I didn't want to play football as a kid. I thought I was a basketball player, but football is what was going to get me to school. So I became a football player and everything that came with that. So now I'm mimicking the behaviors of what it looks like to be a football player.
Oh, yeah.
And then you realize like, okay, I've been mimicking and altering my personality to make sense to these environments. Now I don't make sense to myself because I've done it so many times. What makes sense for me? And then again, those questions are very existential and deep. And I'm the wrong person to have those deep conversations because I don't know when to stop, man. Like they keep on going for me.
I think a lot of our environments too, as men, we're sort of inclined not to dig into that stuff and to say, I just need to toe the line. I need to toe the line harder. You know, maybe I'm not fulfilled because I haven't towed the line as hard as I should.
Yeah.
You know, work out harder, eat better, work more. You know,
It's actually quite courageous to recognize that element of yourself and then be willing to go dive into it.
So the benefit of my personality was that like I've always been an introvert. So I've never really followed the crowd. It's never been my thing. If anything, I was trying to do the opposite because I was trying to separate myself from the competition or even my teammates at the time because you're competing within yourself. And it's how do I become different and better? What's the next level look like? So I gave more attention to that than all those other things. Like I'm an introvert, man. I don't need the fanfare. I don't need to be accepted by the next individual, but I needed to find out what makes sense for me. So yeah, I don't mind going that extra mile.
But so what are you doing? Have you spun this into a business or a mission? What's your mission right now?
It's both. So yeah, the mission and the business. This is the beauty of the journey I've taken. It's all aligned, man. Like all of it fits together. So my mission, my purpose is actually my business now. So I am a licensed therapist and counselor, writer. I'm actually doing podcasts now. All of it is built on mental health and trying to bring awareness to the conversation. The therapist thing is the individual one-on-one conversation. I'm trying to go back to get my doctorate so I can become an educator so that I can get groups together to get comfortable with the conversation. Writing books in terms of just narrative therapy, the stuff that helps me, it all becomes a part of the brand now. It's multi-layered and it doesn't feel like I'm extending myself outside of myself. I'm just becoming a greater extension of myself. And I'm living in the moment, man. That's the beauty. I'm actually dealing with my own mental health issues in real time. And I'm a very instinctual individual. Like I have a fire in my belly that actually guides me to tell me what makes sense for me. I just tend to follow it.
That's awesome.
and that's tough to do, by the way.
Yeah.
What's it like writing a book and getting it
so
published?
Brian, when I say it wasn't the intention, man, it really wasn't. Like I journal because I journal. Because I'm an introvert, I use journaling to release my thoughts. When I go too far and I feel like I'm overwhelmed by thoughts, I have to let them out. And I usually do that by journaling. And as I was journaling, it got deeper and deeper because the conversation and education that I was receiving was getting deeper and deeper. And then as I went back to get my master's in mental health counseling, I was learning theories about mental health. I was learning techniques about mental health. And then I had to take my national counselor's exam. So I had to study all the psychology. And I was like, oh my God, I need to apply this to what I'm dealing with. And as I started applying it, I was journaling it. And as I started to journal, I was like, man, I felt like I found the secret. I want to share it with the world. So the book became just a collection of my journal entries. It was never intended to be for consumption or to be public. It was really just an exercise for me. It was a therapeutic exercise. Let's put this out, put yourself out there, see what it looks like. And all of it has become just experimental therapeutic exercises that I feel like are in the moment. So for me, that book was just narrative therapy. It was actually me practicing narrative therapy because it made sense for me. So finding out what those things are that help you cope with whatever you're dealing with is what I was doing. And as I was doing it, and it was making me feel better. It was like, man, why wouldn't you share it? And that's what it became.
So what's the name of your book?
Maybe I'm ill. The Shadow in the Empty Chair. So the whole idea was, am I ill? Like, is this my personality? And do I feel ill because I don't make sense to the world or the world doesn't make sense to me? Like, I don't know. They've given me these diagnoses. Like, do I feel ill? And then the shadow in the empty chair really is the two different concepts. There is a shadow, which is the part of yourself that you don't like because you hide it from the public, is your vices, your sins. And then the empty chair is really just the ideal of me interviewing myself as if I'm talking to myself. If this is my shadow, I want to interview my shadow. What don't you like about yourself? And that's what the book became. Tell me what you don't like about yourself. Deal with your own darkness. What are your demons? What are your vices? And then it's actually airing out, oh my God, self-awareness. That self-awareness is key to my entire well-being, because now you can't convince me of what I am and what I'm not. And I think a lot of psychological warfare is that middle gap between who the world is convincing you to be and what makes sense, the financial success and love from your peers, and what you know you are. And I think that gap in between, you can make sense of who you are, you're less inclined to be sold on what the public's telling you to be. So it all just felt good, man. I was like, I need to share this, bro.
I also am envisioning a podcast where he's interviewing himself
Oh, I think we could accomplish
in
that.
an empty chair.
Yeah, I think we could accomplish that. You just got to, we can talk about the technical details.
And that's actually how
but
the book came out.
I mean,
The way it started was, the prologue started like that. It's like me having a conversation with myself. Like, as the counselor, what would I ask myself and what would my response be?
Yeah.
And then as the antagonist, what would my rebuttal be as a debate? So that's how it started.
Well, I think what you're talking about too is the managing expectations of yourself, right? Yeah. And saying like, okay, my expectations of myself are set by what I think others' expectations are of me, which is almost never really right.
Right.
People usually don't have nearly the expectations of you that you have of yourself.
And I'm a perfectionist, man. It's impossible for somebody to expectations for me to be greater than mine.
Right.
But that's also it could be a detriment, because you're never having any grace with yourself. Like, good is never good enough. Everything needs to feel great and grand. And this whole experiment has helped me with that, because now it helps me manage my own expectations. Now I'm just in the process, appreciating the moment. I've developed a level of patience, and I release expectations altogether. I'm just in a moment, and I'm learning to enjoy it. That to me is wellness.
I think he just said he's enjoying this.
All right.
I didn't say the podcast. I said the process.
That's an endorsement. I heard.
I think that's what I heard.
Thank you, guys.
I'm going to hear
enjoyed
it as an endorsement.
I enjoyed the
That's right.
conversation.
I'm going to choose to interpret that as an endorsement.
If I'm here, then you're endorsed. I wouldn't be here otherwise. Trust me.
That's awesome. So good. One of my questions for you is, why start a podcast? What was the motivation to get that started?
Yeah, that's a good question, Bill. I guess so. It wasn't really a motivation. It was some encouragement from my first guest, who you met, Richard Seymour. I got on social media for the first time almost a year ago. I experienced social anxiety, so I've never been big on social media. It gives me anxiety, but again, I'm dealing with my mental health issues in real time. So social media to me was exposure therapy. It's the ideal of facing your fear. And if I'm fearful of being exposed to the public eye, then let me get in the public eye and see what this looks like. And it's like, well, what are you going to share? What is your content? My content is me. I'm dealing with mental health issues. Are you comfortable having that conversation? And it's like, absolutely. It's all about awareness. And then as I did it, I shared it with the guys who were closest to me, and Richard was one of them. He was like, bro, I love this for you. This makes sense. And he had just become an owner of the Raiders, so he went on one of the most popular podcasts in the country, The Pivot, which I know those guys, so I watched it. But as he was there, he got off and he was like, bro, you need to do this. And I was like, man, I don't know. He was like, no, man, you need to do this, and I'll be your first guest. And it's like, well, shit, I got an NFL owner as my first guest. Why wouldn't I do this? So
you're like, okay, fine.
Yeah, so again, but it really is all experimental. And then I met Kelly, and she's been a huge encourager of what I'm doing. So it's like, as it builds momentum, I get more comfortable with the conversation. But I don't know what I want that to look like. I know I do want to bring mental health and awareness to everybody's attention. So I'm hoping it goes from just competitive greatness and performance psychology to deeper mental health conversations. And ideally, I'll start having guests on as if they were clients and having the conversations. Yeah. But it's just going with the flow right now.
I think it was especially interesting watching your conversation with Savell Newton, because you guys both talked about kind of getting past football, right? And that's a hard thing, because again, I've not ever had that level of success, so it's very difficult for me to understand what that's like. But I do recognize the observation of that, to say, it's got to be tough getting to that point where you're so intense and you're so focused on one thing, and then it's over, And then how do you?
Yeah,
how
and
do you
I
get
don't
beyond
think
it?
most people have to deal with that level of transition, because most of the time when you're passionate about something, it's something you can do for a lifetime.
Right.
But the reality is, I actually maxed that experience out.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say like I know Savell had more that he wanted to do. I didn't. Like, I don't feel
Right.
like I left anything on the table. But the ideal of becoming something other than who you know yourself to be and what you love, and it's all you gave attention to. Like,
Yeah.
to do that, and it's like instantaneously everything, the structure around you is no
Well-
longer present. So you have to figure stuff out.
And I had even kicked around the idea before Rub Some Dirt On It came about. I kicked around the idea of having a podcast solely dedicated to athletes transitioning.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's obviously football players, that's our realm, but there's so many other athletes out there. And the more we put onto sports,
Mm-hmm.
it starts to define you. And whether you like it or not, you're a football player or you're an athlete. And then when that's taken away, whether you have the opportunity to walk away or they say, we don't want you anymore, it's a hit to the soul,
Yeah.
because you are like, what do I do now? Who am I? And Andre's obviously got to be able to discover who he is, but there's so many people out there that don't know. And then they get into a depression cycle. They get into
Yeah.
all of the things trying to figure out who they are, what they love, what they want to do.
So I remember
And-
Brian Anderson, when we were talking to him, he's Major
Yeah.
League Baseball. He was talking about mental health issues with baseball players, and that a lot of it comes down to the rigorousness of that many games and, you know, what you've got to do to keep up with it. And then once it's over, what do you do with yourself? Right?
And I think
You know?
I do think is relative across all walks of life, though. Like, a lot of us, our career does define who we are.
Oh,
As
yeah.
we wrap our identity up into it.
Sure.
So without that, you do develop this midlife identity crisis. It's like, oh my God, like, this is who I thought I was.
Yeah.
And now I'm no longer this, and I don't have the ability, and I can't even, like, my skill set no longer has the ability to be monetized. Like, and that's the other part of it. Like, the thing that I'm good at can no longer be monetized. So how am I going to make a living if I no longer have skills that cater to my lifestyle?
Right.
And that's the thing that I think scares a lot of athletes, because you actually do have to tap into all layers of yourself, and that
That's
can
why
be
it's
a scary
important to get an
thing.
education, guys.
Yeah.
Well, and is one of the things that I guess you know, is a luxury of not of being able to be anonymous. Like, I can practice. Like, I love music. I love playing music, but I can practice it anonymously. In other words, I can just get together with my friends and play music, and it doesn't mean anything. Right? We can have fun, and you know, nobody's calling for me to play the song off my first album because that's the one that everybody loves. Right? It's not. I'm not in that space where I got to play the hit again after 40 years of playing the hit over and over again. So, you know, there's a luxury of being anonymous.
Yeah.
You know, of
Because
being able to.
I mean, because what you're describing sounds like a recreational hobby.
Yeah.
But for guys who, like, again, I think I've referenced this multiple times, when your actions and your skill set has, like, a very specific purpose, and it caters to something greater, even if it's just the entertainment factor for the country, or is my teammates are depending on me to practice at my best,
Right.
to be at like, that becomes a part. Like, I love that, because now I'm waking up and I'm dedicated to what I'm doing. I'm disciplined, I'm committed, and all those things become your identity. And, like, after a while, it's like, well, nobody cares about any of that anymore. And you're trying to figure it out for yourself. And for whatever reason, like, a lot of us, when we're going on this path of professional athletes especially, people cater to you so much that you don't have to develop your own skill set, because people are making sure
Yeah.
you have what you need.
Putting you in that position.
And then
to-
as soon as you no longer have that, all those people disappear, and now you have to be self-sufficient. You're like, I've never had to learn any of these self-sufficient skills. So it just becomes a very just dangerous territory.
Well, a question that brings up in my head is, what do you think the difference is? So for instance, you know, when I was 16, 17 years old, all I wanted to be was a professional singer. That's all I wanted to be. And I was a great singer in my little town. And then when I got out of my little town, I realized, I'm not really that good. I'm only good in a vacuum, right? What makes it so that somebody can come from high school football into college football, into professional football? What is the difference there? What makes that difference?
In terms of leveling up.
Is it luck? Is there a certain like mindset and focus that you can do? Is it like what does it makes the difference to say somebody can go into the NFL and be successful versus somebody that just doesn't
Yeah, I think that's multi-layered across the board. Opportunity, luck, and also just what you're willing to sacrifice. Like, because you're basically to be at that level, professional level especially, but I think it feels the same every time you level up from high school to college. It feels like you have to be willing to sacrifice a social life sometimes. It's like most people don't want to do that. Or you have to be willing to fit within this box and this team structure, and they're telling you these parts of you don't make sense, so can you not do that? Some of us don't have the ability to not be who we love being, and then you allow some external factors to play a part. It's just fitting within that structure and discipline of programs. And then at the next level, it's like, well, can you fit within that and still excel as an individual in your specific role? Like, but also that really does come down. Like, there are so many athletes that probably have just as much as Billy, a lot of professional athletes that just don't have opportunity, that have dealt with injuries. Like, so there's so many, that's just multi-layered, man. A lot of that is just.
Very few injuries in music. You don't get a lot. You don't get very injured.
Blistered fingers, but
you don't get much of a danger there. But I think
talk about injuries and overcoming injuries.
Yeah.
Andre has had overcome one of the most
scars.
Amazing injuries ever.
Yeah.
And didn't they have you talk to Marcus?
Mm-hmm. So when I retired and came on in that role, that's when Marcus dealt with his injury. So it just happened to be perfect timing, and they asked me to have a conversation with him. And yeah, I mean, that you're talking about the psychological struggle that comes with that, man. But that's also, I will say, that's also what birthed my mentality, just in terms of, I think I read in the paper the next day after the injury that my career was over before they actually told me. So when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, like this is the fight that I have ahead of me. So for 2 years, it was just straight rehab, and I was away from the team while I was rehabbing. And now I'm really just isolated. And then that's the psychological warfare, and you find out so much about yourself. And it's like, oh no, I got too much fight in me to not see this thing through. And then you accept whatever that looks like in the end. But then there is the ideal of the potential of who I could have been versus now I have to settle. And that to me is that's the gut-wrenching part that you have to sell. Like, the idea of settling for less than who you know yourself to be is psychologically, that's torture. So that conversation, for me, I tried to offer what I could, but I knew what he was going through. And it seems like he's made it out on the other end as well. He seems to be doing well for himself and found some level of peace as well.
Yeah, and he had to reinvent himself as well and go through that transition of, I'm not the man football player anymore. I'm a different man.
And I was able to carry on my career, but I still had to deal with the idea, like, man, like, I still feel like I'm less than what I was. And that just, again, you find out about yourself, man. And I'm glad he's, again, found out a lot about himself.
You can tell in his voice the passion and desire to be great.
Well, the intensity, I was thinking about when you say sacrifice, this is really important, right? Like, when I was 16, I didn't spend most of my day practicing. So I spent most of my day socializing and dreaming of doing something that I wasn't actually focused on doing, right?
So that's exactly what my point is when you're talking about what it takes to get from one level to the next in that sacrifice, but it's also, there's got to be a drive deep inside.
Right.
Because when you get to high school is one thing, right? It's very clear who the best player on the field is.
Right.
But then you bring them all to college, and then it's still pretty clear who the best players on the field are. And then there's always that one guy, two guys that are the best players on the field. Mm-hmm. But the rest of them are relatively the same ability.
Right.
And it's who has the stronger desire, the will, the sacrifice to be great and get to that next level.
Well, and that's the thing I've always found interesting working around college sports as much as we have over the last couple of years, is that I believe that no matter how successful the team is, all the players are among the best players in the country. I mean, if you get recruited to a Division I school, you're as good as just about anybody, and it has to do with all of those things: the desire, the coaching, like the strategy, whatever to help you win. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win just because you're great.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. I mean, that's it from a non-sports person's perspective. That's a really interesting element of sports. Is like with music, you can have also rans, in every popular movement or genre. There's that third or fourth or fifth tier that's not quite as good as the first tier that still is extraordinarily successful. And I don't think you can do that with sports. I think you've got to have all of those elements, wired in, to be able to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you have to be talented and there's a God-given talent,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's what you do with it.
And then the hard work that goes along with it.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So obviously Richard is a great first guest to have. Who's an ideal guest for you?
I don't think I have like a individual in mind. I think anybody who's dealing with their own psychological struggles.
Yeah.
Like anybody, those like high achieving individuals that overachieve, but also don't find peace in what they're doing. They experience self-doubt. They experience emotional turmoil, relationship issues, everything that comes along with trying to be greater. And then you have that little bit of self-doubt. So for me, it's just about that. It's the same thing. It's just the psychological turmoil, man. And I know from a social status standpoint, people love to hear from who we see as relatively important in our society. But for me, the whole ideal of mental health is really about the human condition and the human experience, and that's relative across the board. So the ideal guest is really the ideal client for me, is someone that wants to deal with the thing that's keeping them stuck from maximizing their potential. And for me, from the podcast so far has been about guys that I know, teammates, because one, it helps me get comfortable in the conversation.
Right.
But also I'm learning how to cater the conversation to whoever that guest is. And I love to get into deeper mental health conversations so we can bring about awareness to whatever the audience is. But just in terms of an individual, it's relative, man, across the board. Just someone that's dealing with their psychological
Self-sabotage happens to everybody. It doesn't matter what type of person or what occupation you are.
Well,
Self-sabotage.
how's that part
will get
going for you? Because I know as a podcast host, it's a very different position than being a guest. What's that been like?
So the beauty of it is the initial intent was exposure therapy.
Right.
And my anxiety has definitely been reduced. My expectations have been calmed. The thing that the podcast and social media has helped me do is just embrace the process of being. Like if I had to compare or comps in terms of analytics, I probably need to stop just in terms of if I'm comparing it to what it should look like. But just in terms of what it's offering me, the level of growth, but also making peace with my progress. It's been great. The whole experience has been great.
If you think about it, the podcast is the ideal source of content for an introvert.
Right.
Because
you can be by yourself.
Because all you have to do
yourself.
is sit down with someone and just talk, and then it gets clipped up by somebody else, put out on the internet by somebody else. You don't even have to look at it. It's just,
And then I have Kelly doing a great job of making sure it makes sense for the brand. So yeah, I'm really I'm trying to make it make sense for the guests. And I know we talked about this before we got on air, of just having the guests share their stories and not just trying to create content for clickbait, but actually having conversations that cater to the well-being of the guests and then allowing them to share their story the way they want to. So
well, and I think expectations are important in that regard too, because if you temper your expectations, I think I've been observing how it's been going, obviously, because I'm interested in helping you make sure that it gets going well, and I'm seeing the growth. I'm seeing the right numbers happening. I'm seeing all of those things headed in the right direction, and I think it comes down to how much the guest is willing to share,
right?
Right.
Of course, absolutely.
So if the guest shares, Champ Bailey shared, and it went crazy, And I think as you start to do this more, you're going to get a comfort level for like doing that. But I think what we've realized is that the reps are really important. I'm using a term from y'all's world. The reps are really important. Doing it over and over again. Just getting comfortable with with being there, being in a place where, you know, if hosting is bringing you less anxiety, you can start to push that a little bit to say, I'm going to have a guest that I don't know.
Right.
and that's a tough one. Brian and I started this in January. Like all of our guests up until January were people we knew.
Yeah.
We knew
much,
pretty
yeah.
well,
Yeah.
right? You know, so that we could just sit down and have a conversation like this. I mean, you guys know each other well enough. But like the guy,
Interestingly to know, we've known each other for 20 years, 25 years.
right?
But did we ever really know each other?
And that's
Well,
not
and
even that's not even limited to Brian. I think I told
Yeah.
Kelly, like, I'm 45 years old. I don't know anybody that really knows me. I'm that introverted, man.
Yeah.
So that, but also, like, I think the thing that helped with my expectations, and me and Savell talked about this on his podcast, is the idea. If I'm staying true to what I am, it is the ideal of the one-on-one. If it was one person that is paying attention and that conversation gets to the right ear, then that to me is enough. But the competitor inside of me is like, oh man, I want to compete with the other
Yeah.
podcasts. But if I'm just being true to my brand, it really is just about awareness, man.
Well, so from a mental health standpoint, talk about the competitiveness, because I think that's an interesting trait that does push you through those levels too, is that competitiveness, right? But at this point, is the competitiveness still strong? Is it still helping you or pushing you?
That's not going away. But that's part of me. That's part. When I say that fire in my belly, it doesn't go away. It's not always ignited, but it's always there. And when it gets ignited, I know I'm on the right path. But the beauty of it for me is it's all intrinsic. It's never the comp against the next individual. It's
Right.
never me trying to be as great as a Champ Bailey. It's trying to match Champ Bailey's energy so that I can be as great as I can be. So that to me that's everything. That's part of my makeup, man. How can I be better the next day so I'm competing against yesterday's version of me? That's never going away. Right. What that looks like is today it's a podcast. A year ago it was a book. Next week, I don't know what it looks like, but it's always me trying to progress.
Have
That's
you
not
gotten
going
any hobbies? Are you fishing?
Golf. I'm golfing, man. I'm loving.
Golfing,
Yeah,
okay.
I picked up golf 2 years ago, and that was a sign of me becoming well, because golf requires a level of
Communication with other people.
absolutely not. It just requires me to be out there and be okay in the moment and just be present in the moment,
Yeah.
to focus on that one thing. But then it's also like I stay grounded because I'm out in nature, and it was something I can do by myself initially, but now I'm learning to incorporate the foursomes, and I'm having deeper conversations, because now I have substance to offer just in terms of what I'm doing. But yeah, I'm an avid golfer now, man. I wish I could play more.
Well, the few times I've played golf, I've only played it with foursomes.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a communal. I've never played it by myself. You know.
Yeah,
so-
that's
Most
what-
people don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
golf tournaments are kind of the ideal, and then captain's choice. So you don't have to be a good golfer; you just have to be out there having fun.
Yeah, be able to drive the cart, you know, and keep up with everybody,
And not embarrass yourself too.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know, that's fine. It's I actually went to the driving range last week with some friends, and I forgot how fun it is when you hit the ball square. Like, you don't hit it square most of the time, but when you do hit it square, it's like, man, that is really satisfying.
Yeah, that sound is addictive when you hit that sweet spot, man.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you make a basketball shot and you hear the swish. It's like, it's just validation that you did it right.
And you can see it going relatively straight, you know, even if it curves a little bit, you know, if it's going relatively straight. Like, I haven't done this enough to expect it to go straight, you know, so it's okay. You know,
and it's one of those games that you'll never conquer, so you're always out there trying to master it. So.
Well, and we had talked when it was on originally about the Netflix series,
Full Swing,
the PGA series, and they talked on there, all of these professional golfers at the height of golf in general talked about how hard it is for them to be consistent, how hard it is for them to be successful all the time, you know.
Well, and then there was, I can't remember which season, I guess the last one, one of the guys on there has a mental health coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the ability to focus and the ability to live in the moment and not take this moment to that next shot.
Yeah.
It's very...
Yeah, those mental health concepts do. So that's also why I dabble with the performance psychology, because the concepts are relative across
Right.
whatever it is that prevents you from being great in your career can also be the thing that prevents you from being a better individual. So they are pretty relative.
Yeah.
What
I
are
think that's
some
very cool.
exercises that people can do to, reduce their anxiety? Is it totally different for everybody, or is it just kind of like, here are some methods that you found that work?
Yeah, it's
well?
definitely different for everybody, and that's the beauty of getting comfortable with your client and the conversation in their individual journey, because different techniques work for different individuals. So for me, narrative therapy is very therapeutic. Exposure therapy is helping me with my anxiety. Meditation to me is everything, because what you're essentially trying to do with clients who are trying to change their life or change their mentality is, it's all about neuroplasticity. It's how do you change your neural connections, and meditation helps with that, just in terms of how you readjust your thought process. So it's different for everybody, man. But I'm big on narrative therapy, exposure therapy, cognitive restructuring, but meditation and physical exercise, adapting your lifestyle as well, just developing a healthy lifestyle with nutrition, exercise, and sleep. But yeah, it's plenty of techniques that works different for everybody. It's multi-layered, just in terms of psychological concepts, but also just physical activities that you can do that make sense for you. But you actually have to sit down and dig deeper into your story for you to know what that is. So for me to say something that's so generic that you think applies across the board, meditation doesn't help everybody. It just helps me. But as a professional, and you get into those conversations, you learn what could be helpful for that particular client.
Well, I think too with the with the ADHD, with mine as bad as it is, I have a hard time with meditation because I have a hard time sitting still for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
it's something I need to do. It's almost, what did you call it when you're confronting something that's hard for you? You said it was called something specific.
Exposure therapy.
Exposure therapy. So that's what would be exposure therapy for me, right? Is like nothing distracting me for 10 minutes is going to be a torture.
Yeah, like I have ADHD, so the idea that my thoughts ran rapid all the time. So to quiet your thoughts allows you to quiet your mind, and it develops a mental clarity that everybody needs. Because at the end of the day, if you have mental clarity and some level of emotional intelligence, then the two, from a scientific standpoint, is the definition of wisdom. Like, if I can manage my emotions and I can have cognitive clarity, that means my feelings are calm, my thoughts are calm. So whatever I'm giving attention to, I can adapt my behaviors to. And that's all CBT is. It's just trying to align all of those things. So when we talk about like what men are so afraid of when it comes to those mental health conversations, like, we don't like expressing emotions. That's not who we are.
Right.
But it's important to understand how to manage those things, because you're trying to discern what makes sense for your particular life, but you're leaving out a piece of yourself. So it's hard to discern with clarity what makes sense if you haven't tapped into those emotions, because they're a part of who you are. You can suppress them all you want, but that's not healthy, because you end up developing all other maladaptive behaviors because you can't express your emotions, you can't express your anger, and now you're self-medicating, and it just leads to unhealthy behavior. So it's just important.
Well, and I'll say that as much as the kind of general wisdom is that men have a hard time expressing their emotions, anytime I've been in a situation where we have expressed emotions, it's usually met much better than what you think it's going to be. So if I say,
Unless that emotion is anger.
or if I say, Brian, I'm sad today, Brian will go, man, I'm sorry about that, bud. Tell me what's going on, right? And it's you're not met with what you think you're going to get met with, right? And it's just a reputation, especially me growing up in the 80s. Men were very different in the 80s and 90s in a way to say, they would tell you those things outright, right? And I think that's changed a lot. I think men can very much easier express their emotion today. Anger is one of those things, though, that if you express it in the right, I mean, I don't know how to express it the right way exactly, but anger's another emotion. It's just something, if you're angry about something, if you push that down, it's going to be hard, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I hit punching bags when I was dealing with it. So, and I will say the beauty of the whole ideal of the self-concept and self-fulfillment is, even if how I express my emotions isn't met or received by the next individual properly, for me is still I expressed it and now I feel better.
Right.
And because I'm so focused on my fulfillment, it's not about how the world responds to me. It's about how I feel about how I represent myself in this world. And if I'm authentic to myself, then I can receive whatever criticism, whatever relationships I lose, whatever opportunities I lose. I'd rather be authentic to who I am and my emotions than to pretend to portray some character that makes sense for the world when the world is going to reject or judge regardless, because that's just human nature, man.
Mm-hmm.
And those expectations are a big part of that. Like what your expectations are of what's going to happen. Manage how you feel about it. You know.
Yeah,
So.
I will say but there is a benefit to being in my position though, because like I was in a financial position to do a lot of this stuff. Like, so when you do have to judge being who you are versus I got responsibility and obligation. So if being who I am doesn't get the career or money that I need to satisfy this lifestyle,
Right.
then it makes you think in a different manner. But I think it's important to actually start out with this level of a foundation of core values and beliefs that make sense for you, and then cater your lifestyle around those core values and
Right.
beliefs versus chasing a lifestyle that doesn't make sense for that, and then dealing with the turmoil that comes between the distinction.
Yeah, man, that's strong. Golly. You know, I'll be turning 52 this year, and I still haven't learned that. You know, I mean, it's hard to learn that stuff, and I've not been reinforced, so nobody's ever reinforced my beliefs. So.
I mean, it's easy. I can sit here and talk about it because again, I've studied it, but to walk in it is the hardest part. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I can sit here and articulate it all day, but the whole idea of exposing myself socially is I'm trying to walk how I speak, so
Right.
that people can see that therapy has helped me, and I'm becoming a better version of myself and a healed version of myself.
I think this conversation is so important to have, and I think, you know, so few people have reached kind of the level of success that you have, and it's easy to go, oh well, obviously Andre can do this stuff because he's reached that level of success. But I think so much of us need to do this stuff. I think so much of us need to kind of temper expectations. You know, when you're talking about, you know, me as a business owner right now, I'm trying to be business ownery when I do things, right? You know, I'm trying to find that pattern that other business owners are doing. And this is one reason why I listen to so many podcasts and watch so many videos and all that stuff, is I want to understand what other people are doing in that space, because the imposter syndrome is a real thing, regardless of whether I've been running a business for 20 years or not, right? It's just like, you know, imposter syndrome is a big thing. Talk about imposter syndrome real quick. Is that something that you, I'm assuming you've never dealt with it personally, and maybe you have, but like, is that something that you recognize that can be helped with people when you're talking about this stuff?
Yeah, so I think the core concept of my whole therapeutic process is about individuation, and that's what the book boils down to as well, is the self-realization of who you are.
Right.
And if you can bring attention to that level of self-awareness, allows you to walk a straighter line where you can accept the things that come with it, because whatever you're attracting, the attention, whatever comes with it, it's part of your true process. I think the imposter syndrome is so toxic because we're trying to cater to so many different things, whether it's the individuals, the marriage, the relationships, the career, whatever that looks like. So yes, it may be a little easier for me to have this conversation based on my career, but the rebuttal to that is, if we're all chasing a level of success that we think makes sense for us, and I'm telling you, I felt like I reached my peak at the age of 33, and it's like, oh my God, I did what I wanted to do with my life. I should feel amazing. And it was the complete opposite. For me, it really was, well, oh my God, what are other people dealing with that keeps them from attacking the thing that they're afraid of? So it's like, okay, let me attack this thing. And if you can give energy to what is true to you, what makes sense for you, that level of self-awareness is amazing. But for me, it's this level of success felt great, but why are these guys committing suicide? And then it's like, okay, you read the statistics and it's like, okay, like we're 50% of the population, but we're 80% of suicidal cases. Like,
Wow.
which is ridiculous. And men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women. And then you start to, all this stuff starts to make sense to you, like, okay, because we're trying to cater to so many different things, we're getting lost in ourselves. And so when I'm having these conversations, everything is catered to being true to who you are. Because if you can have, and it's hard to do because you getting pulled in different ways, which comes into the whole concept of the imposter syndrome. But if you can find out what makes sense for you early on, it can actually determine how you go about your own process. And there's a healthy way to do that that doesn't make you feel like you need to be somebody outside of yourself.
Wow. That's great. So good.
Well, it's also, as he was talking, the wisdom about it, introducing it to teens is, I think, going to be crucial to allowing them to grow and develop with the knowledge rather than having to go back and do the work after the fact. If you can kind of set a foundation, then as they're growing, as they're developing, as they're discovering who they are naturally, it'll put them that much further ahead.
Yeah, that's great.
And a conversation I had with Richard as recently as yesterday was about that foundation and infrastructure that we don't get early on. So we base our lifestyles based on what we think leads to some level of success. And when it doesn't, you crumble because you don't have anything to stand on. Like, I don't know what my core values are. I don't know what my core belief is. I don't know who it is that makes sense for me. And when you don't know those things, all you're doing is getting outside of yourself the entire time. And it's easy for that stuff to crumble because it's not built on anything that's established or substance or something that's tangible that makes sense to you to say, how do I know I'm on the right track? And I can tell you, if the fire in my belly's ignited, then I'm good, man. And that doesn't take much. It doesn't take my bank account to be excess. It just basic needs.
Well, and two, when you don't have that foundation, it can lead you into really dangerous places. It's not even, you know, when you get success and don't understand what you're doing, but like getting into drugs and different things that compensate for that stuff without you having the balance. So that's so important.
Oh yeah, because I mean, you're trying to fill those gaps in the things that don't make you feel good about yourself, and that was the whole ideal of the shadow. What is it about me that I can't stand, and why am I trying to cover it up with other things? Why am I trying to cover it up with money? Why am I trying to cover it up with, oh, if this girl's attracted to me, then obviously I can be who I, like, because you're so unfulfilled in certain places with yourself. Like, at least if you know it and you deal with it, then you can fill those spaces with self-fulfillment. And it's so much easier because all those external things can change in a matter of moments.
Yeah.
And you have to adapt to them.
And then it'll just be what it is. That's so good, man. Awesome. Well, Andre, thank you so much for doing this, man. This was so good to talk to you. What's funny is producing your podcast for the last couple of months, you know, I've been observing this conversation from the outside and I've been wanting to ask questions and I've been wanting to say, well, what does that mean? You know? And so that's been really good to be able to do that. So
hopefully somebody got something out of the conversation. Yeah. But I appreciate you guys bringing me on.
We finish off every podcast with 5 questions, 5 favorites. Don't think about it too much.
I won't.
We're not going to hold you to it.
Yeah. So what is your favorite movie?
Oh, that's a good one. I love Coming to America.
Yeah.
I'm big at Eddie Murphy. I love Coming to America.
I saw Coming to America in the theater.
How'd you feel about Coming to America 2?
I did. I didn't feel anything. I didn't get past the first 10 minutes. Sorry, Eddie. Don't ask stuff like that, man.
Can I just say to all movie studios, where's my camera? Don't do that. Don't make a sequel 30 years after the original movie.
Oh,
please.
Happy Gilmore's coming out on Friday.
Happy Gilmore 2 is on Netflix. So we all get to watch it because we got nothing else to do. I'm like, oh my goodness. But I love Coming to America. That's a great one.
What is your favorite band?
Oh, I'm a New Edition guy.
New Edition?
Yeah, New Edition is timeless to me.
Nice.
I can listen to New Edition like it's current. I'm a New Edition guy.
So good. I would like to know what's your NFL team? Who you root for?
Before I became a professional, it used to be the 49ers. I was a huge Steve Young fan. But after my career, I don't root for anybody. I root for players. I root for the Gamecock players that go on.
Nice.
And I root for their individual performance. But I don't have a team that I root for. I mean, when I see Detroit doing well, I get excited because they drafted me. Right. But I feel I feel the same way about Denver as well.
We could have got into that.
What's that?
Well, Andre has a great story of overcoming defeat.
Oh yeah.
In more ways than one. with with the 0-21.
Yeah.
And then he was on the Detroit Lions that went 0-16. The
So-
only team ever.
So I don't know much about NFL at all, other than I know that the Detroit Lions have not ever been very successful.
Okay, thanks
Ever?
for pointing that out, Bill. But go ahead.
Is that right?
Well, they've had
They
their
made
moments.
the playoffs once in the 90s.
They've had
In
their
the
moments.
90s.
They're doing
Okay.
well. They're
They're
doing
doing
currently
really
doing
great
well.
now.
Currently doing well. But Detroit is one of the cities that I've worked in more than just about any other city, and so I have a Tigers hat because Magna PI had a Tigers hat. I was like, okay, when I go back to Detroit, what do I get? Did I get a Lions hat, or do I get a Red Wings hat? Right? Just kind of figure out how to do that. But I did not know that you play. Who else did you play for?
4 years in Detroit, who drafted me. 3 in Miami, and then my last 3 in Denver.
In Denver. Okay, that was who, because you played with
Champ
Champ
Bailey.
in Denver.
Yeah.
Okay, I knew that, but cool. So I think it's I think all of those stories are great, and I don't have to love the NFL to love football movies and baseball movies. I love sports movies, so I'm into it. So
Yeah.
Cool. That's good to know.
All right. We'll go back to the favorites. What is your favorite season?
Of individual performance. You say
Ooh.
season.
Season.
See?
Oh.
Or season.
We didn't say season of the year. Then
Yeah.
people
Oh,
go.
season.
right.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
So
I'm a big fall guy. I like the
Okay.
fall. Yeah.
We've had people say Christmas, and we've
Yeah,
had people
that's
say
why
football.
we separate it as season.
Yeah,
to get you an idea.
I'm a big fall.
Where does
Yeah.
your mind go when we say season? What was your favorite football season?
Individually,
Yeah.
I to think my first year in Denver, because Denver is such a sports city, and the energy felt different. And the team, we got off to a 6-0 start. So for the first time in my career, I was like, I got a chance. And I was playing with Hall of Famers between Champ Bailey and Brian Dawkins.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I love Denver.
All right. Final one.
What would be your last meal on death row?
That's a good one. Oh man, it's corny, but probably sea bass and asparagus.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, that would be it.
Listen, I love a healthy meal, but that doesn't have to be a healthy meal. That's the one meal you don't have to have as a healthy
Yeah,
meal.
I'll go out with sea bass and
Okay,
asparagus. That's
I like
fine.
it. No, that's awesome. Well, Andre, thank you so much, man. This was great.
Yeah, thank you so
Appreciate
much.
y'all having me. Not a problem.